Lord of the Rings. It's my favorite movie trilogy of all time. It's honestly perfect. The story, the characters, the themes, it's one of those rare moments of magic where the stars line up perfectly and the movie gods give us a masterpiece. But I'm going to try my best to recast it because that's what you guys chose and that's what you really wanted to see. But if you're new here, please check out Recasting Harry Potter, my previous series, where I actually started this. But for the record, I do not want to see this trilogy remade in any way. I don't think you can improve on perfection. It has actors who became their characters to the point where I see Elijah Wood's face, I just go, that's Frodo. That being said, it doesn't always directly line up with the books. And obviously some material needs to get cut, as all adaptations do, so we're going to look at Lord of the Rings from a different perspective. I'd like to see it as a TV series where we can really show off the characters and what they have to offer, and give their storylines time to breathe. Now, Amazon is obviously creating a Lord of the Rings series, but it's set in a different age, meaning different characters. But who knows, we might actually be revisiting these characters in a couple seasons down the road. If there was a massive time jump, as it did in the past, there will be parts to this series. Harry Potter was a little bit more clear-cut with a book apart in the series, but for Lord of the Rings, I'm going to divide it up because I really want to talk about the characters and my choices with more length. So we will be seeing parts. Today we're only talking about the Hobbits, but don't worry, in the next video I will get to the rest of the Fellowship. Now I spent hours and hours of going through pages and pages of actors, and I found it extremely hard to land on a choice for every single one of these characters. I did try to cast actors who are on the shorter side, similar to the Jackson trilogy, because it would help with the proportions when shrinking them down. So I did try and avoid larger actors, meaning everyone should be 5'9" or shorter. Also, other than Frodo, I tried to go with actors that really don't have roles attached to their faces. People who are a little bit less known and can really grow into the character. So without further ado, let's recast Lord of the Rings. Now, with recasting Lord of the Rings, we just can't recreate Peter Jackson's version. There's really no point in doing that. Rather, we need to switch it up, look at it from a different perspective, and really dive into the source material for inspiration. One of the biggest things and differences when it comes to the Hobbits in the books is the difference in their characterizations and especially in their age. It's worth noting that the aging of Hobbits doesn't exactly mesh up with humans. I read somewhere that Hobbits come to age around 30 as opposed to the belief in our society that it's 18, meaning that the ages of the Hobbits aren't really exact and their maturity in their appearance should appear a little bit younger. That being said, at the beginning of our adventure, Frodo is actually 51 years old, meaning as wonderful as Elijah Wood's performance was, he was extremely young to portray the character. He was actually 18 in the first movie when filming. They made it seem like Frodo was the youngest and least experienced, when actually the opposite is the case. Frodo is by far the oldest of the Hobbits, more than 20 years seniors to the majority of the other Hobbits. The next oldest is Merry at 37, which means Frodo can be portrayed very differently than we saw in the films. Also, I do have a little bit of a quarrel with how Frodo is perceived, especially in the later half of the trilogy. He always ends up being that damsel in distress. He largely relies on others, and he never really holds his own. I want a Frodo who, yes, is older, but one who's more wise and can hold himself together. He can carry the weight of the ring because of his strength of character. That's why I went with James McAvoy. He is more of a household name than I would like, but he fits the character wonderfully. He's 40 years old, which would work perfectly with the more wise Frodo we're going for, and he really has the acting chops. I can see him having fun in the Shire, but more importantly, and I think more important to the character, is that darker turn, and how we can see the character evolve throughout the series. McAvoy would really knock that out of the park.
What did you say? You hit me, Bruce! You're gonna hit me, Bruce! Yeah?
Oh, my darling, I'm sorry.
You sicken me.
It is worth noting he is 5'7", which is short enough to play a hobbit. With McAvoy, we could see that different side of the character. One who's more capable, one who's more wise, and one who is the senior of the group. So James McAvoy as Frodo Baggins. Now Samwise was difficult. Probably the most difficult of the Hobbits for me, because Sean Astin's performance may be the best of the entire trilogy, either him or Viggo. It is worth mentioning that Sam is in his 30s in the books, meaning his dynamic is a little bit different with Frodo than we see in the movies. They are portrayed as best friends from the beginning, rather than a master-servant relationship, which is more true to the books. That's why we constantly see Sam regarding Frodo as Mr. Frodo. It's clear that Frodo is in a role of authority, and although Sam is proud to work for him, and they are friends, it's not like the films. They eventually get there, but it's a path and a journey to break down that social barrier and become the best friends that we actually see. This would allow for some really powerful moments in the series, meaning casting a younger actor not only makes sense, but it's important for the arc. Sam is a tough character to cast because it's all about his energy. He just keeps on giving, and he has a heart that doesn't stop, and he never gives up. Although it isn't a typical choice, but I think Dean Charles Chapman would fall into the role quite well. He has that sweet nature to him that we've seen in a couple of his characters. But when I saw him in 1917, I saw glimmers of Sam peeking through.
Have some of mine. I wish I'd shot that rat now.
But I wish you'd picked some other bloody idiot.
What?
Why in God's name did you have to choose me?
I didn't know what I was picking you for.
No, you didn't. You never know. That's your problem.
All right, then, go back. Nothing's stopping you. You can go all the way bloody home if you want.
Don't. Just don't.
I didn't know what I was picking you for. I thought they were going to send us back up the line or for food or something. I thought it was going to be something easy. All right? I never thought it would be this.
Now he is only 22, which is a little bit younger than I would like, but I can really see that energy, and I could see him leaning into that interesting dynamic with James McAvoy. It would give Sam's arc a little bit more of an interesting perspective, him being more of a servant and a lot younger than Frodo, evolving into a best friend and a confidant. So Dean Charles Chapman as Samwise Gamgee. So there's my Frodo and Sam. On to Merry and Pippin. The films portrayed them as pranksters and a little bit more of a comic relief than originally intended in the books. Merry is actually a lot more wise and far older than Pippin in the books. He's actually 37 while Pippin is 29. We kind of always just lump them together because they were goofballs who got stolen and eventually took over Isengard. Instead, I want to make them their own characters a little bit more and not have them be defined as one stereotype. Now, Merry is different in the books, and we actually see him come up with a plan to get them to Bree. My first initial thought when it comes to Merry is I kind of want to make him a badass. It would come in nicely in the later seasons, when Merry takes the turn to fight, but I want to see him as a strong, passionate hobbit who stands up for himself. That's why I see Ben Schnetzer in the role. If you've seen him in the movie Pride before, you'd know why.
What are you going to do now?
Stay here.
And do what? And get a job down the pit. That's all they need, a trained pastry chef with a camera. When are you going to get some guts, huh? You're a member of LGSM, Bromley, so stop sneaking out of your mammy's house in the dead of night and stand up for yourself. Have some pride.
If I'm being honest, Merry is actually my least favorite of the four hobbits, and I think Ben could help change that. He has the attitude and that drive and the strength of character to really make me root for him and really make the character his own. So Ben Schnetzer as Meriadoc Brandybuck. As for Pippin, he is 29 and he's the youngest of the hobbits, but by far he's the most immature. He's compared similarly to a teenager, and I want to give that feel, not only in comic relief, but in uncertainty. He's supposed to be foolish, and I really want to lean into that.
Fool of a took.
That's why I want Craig Roberts to play the role. I first saw him in a wonderful little indie movie called Submarine, and I noticed his talent right away. His acting, just with his face, perfectly depicts a teenager role. While I've been following his career for a while, he hasn't really had a role to show what he can do.
Look, why don't you and your son just pick out something from our gift shop?
I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation here.
Wait a sec, you think we're father and son?
We came to see a giant cow. We're going to see a giant cow.
I mean, what about the different accents? Does that not bother you?
Hey, look, here's a postcard.
Postcard? You think that's gonna solve this? What are you, working with lead-based paint?
Hey, what the f? That's mine.
He looks far younger than any of the actors I've cast, and much more innocent. He's also 5'6", which is the shortest actor I've cast in a Hobbit role, which would help lean into that innocent, younger side of the character. I want to see Craig Roberts bring this character from foolish teenager to a full-fledged, confident Hobbit. So Craig Roberts as Peregrine Took. As for the last Hobbit we have in a major role, we have Bilbo Baggins. It's his 111th birthday when we start the series, but Bilbo doesn't seem like he's 111. As Gandalf said,
You haven't aged a day.
Which is true, the film series doesn't really dive into it, but Bilbo stopped aging at the moment he got the ring. It definitely changed him within, but didn't change his age. Meaning, although we're dealing with a Hobbit who's 111, he should appear far, far younger. So young, in fact, that it should be alarming to Gandalf. Bilbo has a small role, but one that needs comedy and timing. He has a spring in his step and a certain disposition. That's why I think Tom Hollander would do wonderfully in the role. He is 51 years old, which would work well when Bilbo found the ring, but he has a comedy background and the right energy for the character.
Oh, I would like to make a toast to the lovers. Perfect pairing. Beauty and elegance entwined. Let no man tear them asunder.
He is also 5'5", which would work really well. So Tom Hollander as Bilbo Baggins. So there are all the hobbits from Lord of the Rings. I know technically Smeagol's a hobbit too, but I will be tackling him in a different episode. And if you'd like to see how James McAvoy might look in the role of Frodo, head over to a channel called Azart, who have been following my recasts and doing deepfakes of them. Please stay tuned for next episode when we tackle the rest of the Fellowship. Please comment and let me know your decisions down below. As always, thank you to my patrons Adam Gray, Jeremy Jacobs, Jenny Edwards, Gabe Marchanda, Gunnar Legling, Colleen West, Marco Perry, Roland, Aiden McShange, Lon Hudson, Kieran Hunt, George Conan, Brandon Warner, Sweevy, Alex Tal, Derek B. Bell, Jacob Wolf, Jerome Florich, Alexander Gardulo, Lisa Hewer, and Rachel Kilker. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.